All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's Strength and Power, and I've got a couple interesting stories for you guys today. But first, we are just 1 week away from the 2019 Mr. Olympia in Las Vegas. And I'm really excited this year because I'm going to be there, I'm going to have a booth, and I'm going to get the opportunity to meet a lot of you guys there, and I'm really excited for that. I'm flying in Wednesday, and I'm leaving Monday night. So if you guys are going to be in Vegas, hit me up on Instagram, let me know. Try to stop by my booth. It's going to be towards the back of the expo hall, but right in front of the expo stage where the prejudging for a lot of these divisions is going to be held. I'm not going to be selling anything back there. I just got the booth, so I have the opportunity to meet a lot of you guys while I'm there at the expo, just give you guys a place to be able to stop by and see me. So I'm really excited for that part of the weekend. So let's get straight into these stories here. Now, the first story that I have for you guys today is Josh Lenartowicz. So Josh uploaded a video titled The Real Reason, which basically gives the real explanation for why Josh Lenartowicz decided not to compete for the rest of 2019 and why he will not be doing the Olympia, despite the fact that his Olympia prep was going very well up until a certain point. So Josh had put up a post on social media saying he was taking some time away from social media due to some health issues, and a lot of people were wondering what that was about. Then he put up a post saying that his wife had recently given birth. So a lot of people thought that was, really the whole reason why Josh was taking time off to spend some more time with his family. But they put up an interesting video on the IFBB Australia YouTube channel where they basically explained that Josh, he was having some really bad headaches. And basically he went and got a scan done, and they found that there was a tumor on his skull. So if I understand the video correctly, this was not a brain tumor. It was on the outside of the skull, but had not, it didn't affect the brain. It was just pressure on the skull that was giving him a headache. And apparently this is something genetic that his younger brother also had. He also said in the video that this was like a very rare, I think he said it's like the most rare type of tumor you can get. So essentially he had this tumor on his skull and he had to go in and get it removed. And they were expecting it to be kind of a quick in and out, get the thing removed and continue his prep. But essentially there were some complications that led to him being in a medically induced coma for about 10 days. And that's the primary reason apparently why he stepped away, really had to step away from his Olympia prep. So I thought that was a pretty, shocking revelation. And despite whatever complications there were and the health issues that he had, I'm glad to see that he's okay. And he's sitting there talking with Tony Doherty. And he looks to be fine now. So that's the most important thing, regardless of whether or not he's able to do the Olympia. The most important thing is that he's now fine and healthy, and he's getting back into it. So I'm very happy to see that he's doing well. But that is the real reason why Josh Lenartowicz will not be competing at the 2019 Mr. Olympia. All right, so moving on into the next story here. So Breon Ansley put up a post on Instagram a couple days ago that a lot of people were tagging me in, primarily because of the fact that Breon was hitting a vacuum pose in that photo. So one of the things that I've been the most critical of in the classic physique division, and this is not just specific to Breon, this is really, across the board, is personally my favorite classic pose is the vacuum pose. There seems to be some guys in classic that either can't hit the vacuum pose or just choose not to. Now that's perfectly fine because the vacuum pose is not a mandatory pose in classic physique. I just prefer to see guys hit it. There is a mandatory pose in classic where everybody hits their quote-unquote favorite classic pose, where basically it's just a free-for-all, hit whatever pose you want. But I like to see people hit the vacuum pose. So Breon, he has a very impressive vacuum pose in this photo. He has a very small waist, a great V-taper. And Breon is a great classic physique champion. He's a great classic physique Mr. Olympia. I have nothing against Breon, and I never have. Breon has a tremendous physique. I think he deserved both the victories that he won. But I just think that Chris Bumstead has a really great classic physique. And I just happen to prefer Chris's physique in several poses. And people are always like, oh, you're just a Chris Bumstead fanboy. It's not like Chris Bumstead is like a dead last placer in classic physique. He lost by 1 point last year to Breon Ansley. So clearly the judges also agree that Chris has a very comparable physique to Breon, that Chris has a Mr. Olympia caliber physique. He's been runner-up the past 2 years, separated by just 1 point. I want to stress that. It's not like Breon is just miles ahead of Chris. There's only a 1 point separation in Breon beating Chris. So when I say that I think Chris can win the Olympia, I don't think it's that far-fetched of an idea. Now, again, I think Breon has a fantastic physique. I think he's a great champion. I think there certainly is a possibility that Breon's going to get the three-peat this year and beat Chris again, especially considering that Chris recently had that hamstring injury. Do I think that Breon is going to hit a vacuum pose on stage this year? Personally, I don't think so. He hasn't hit it in the past. The judges still gave him that victory without him hitting a vacuum pose, so why would he? He doesn't have to. And while the vacuum pose that he's hitting looks very good in this photo, when you're on stage next to a guy that like Chris Bumstead that can hit a tremendous vacuum pose, it's not going to look as good in comparison to a vacuum pose like Chris's, which is why he hits a crunched abdominal with his abs flexed to show the detail and separation in his midsection compared to Chris when Chris hits that vacuum pose. And I think it's a very good comparison and a very good contrast in their two physiques. But I do think no matter what, it's going to be an exciting Classic Physique Mr. Olympia competition, and I'm excited to watch it there in person from that expo stage. Now, the next story that I have for you guys today, I think was a pretty interesting story, and this is another Synthol story coming to you guys from Nairobi. Now, I think this was an interesting one because, the title of this is obviously Former Bodybuilder Develops Swollen Muscles from Suspected Synthol Injection. But once you actually get into this story, there's some interesting little facts in there and some interesting little comments made by the guy that actually had this infection that I thought were kind of funny. So this article is about a 30-year-old bodybuilding enthusiast named Ronnie Rano. So essentially, he had some really weird swelling in both his arms and his chest, and everybody is suspecting that it was a synthol injection gone wrong. But the interesting quote that I found in this article from Ronnie Rano himself is that the way he denies using synthol I thought was kind of funny. He says, "I don't have any recollection of receiving the synthol injection. I was nonetheless drunk most of the time during my bodybuilding days, and I don't have memory of everything that I might have done." That is his quote regarding whether or not he used synthol. Now, the doctors that treated him were actually the ones that say they suspect that synthol was the cause of this infection. But I thought this was an interesting case, number one, because typically in a synthol case, you see swelling primarily in the arms. But in this case, it seems to be like in the armpit area between the arms and the chest. So kind of a unique case. And also the fact that this guy is a quote-unquote bodybuilding enthusiast. And you can't really tell that by looking at the guy. He doesn't really look like he's into bodybuilding other than having, maybe a passion for injecting synthol, which is kind of common there. So I thought that would be an interesting side note for you guys. Now, the next story that I have for you guys is a post put up by Shawn Rhoden on his Instagram, where he appears to be 1 week out from 2019 Mr. Olympia. This appears to be a recent picture here. And the caption says, "A little motivation for all you guys getting ready to step on stage. Perfect practice makes permanent. Leave no stone unturned." So honestly, I think it's safe to say at this point, we're probably not going to see Shawn Rhoden compete on the Olympia stage in 2019. Nothing has been resolved in his situation. It's basically the same as it was a couple months ago when it happened. I don't see, the petition or any of that getting him to the stage at this point. I think at this point he is just doing his best to be a bodybuilder and stay in shape and keep training. And I think, even if he doesn't do the Olympia, again, I think it's important to keep in mind here that Shawn is not banned from competing in the IFBB. And there are shows immediately following the Olympia. So if this is what he's looking like 1 week out from the Olympia and he's in shape, there are opportunities for Shawn to compete in the next month, 2 months, even possibly the Rock show in 2020. There's a lot of opportunities for Shawn to actually step on stage. And if he is preparing for a show, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Mr. Olympia. He's still a bodybuilder. He's still an IFBB pro. Right now, he is still the reigning Mr. Olympia. He's not been stripped of that title. So I think it's extremely possible we could see Shawn on an IFBB stage before the end of the year. All right, so now let's get into the final story here that I wanted to talk about. So Bader Budai, a couple days ago, maybe a week ago now, put up a post of Brandon Curry where he captioned it, sort of throwing shade at Big Ramy. The caption was, "No special invitation needed." And this was kind of immediately following Big Ramy putting up a bunch of posing clips and, that sort of thing, kind of hinting at wanting to get a special invitation. Now, the interesting part about this post is in the comment section, George Farah, who was famous for being the trainer of Kai Green, Branch Warren, and many other top IFBB pros, George Farah left a comment on this post that said that Big Ramy did receive a special invitation to compete at the Mr. Olympia, but Big Ramy actually denied that invitation. So I don't know if this is actually true or not, but George Farah is a relatively big name in this industry. He's a relatively reputable guy. I don't think he's training Big Ramy right now. I don't know why he would know that or how he would know that or how close he really is to Big Ramy. But he is a major player in this industry. And he's a guy that would have some inside information. So I thought it was interesting that George Farah left this comment that Big Ramy actually was extended the special invitation to compete and actually turned it down. And if that's the case, I actually have a tremendous amount of respect for Big Ramy if he did receive that invitation and turned it down, because he wants to qualify on his own merit by competing, winning a show, points, whatever. That being said, I still think we're going to see Big Ramy compete before the end of 2019 and try to qualify for that 2020 Mr. Olympia. I think, him taking this year off, probably a mistake, but I think Big Ramy is not going to be messing around in 2020, and we will see him on that 2020 Mr. Olympia stage, and hopefully that'll be a little more exciting than this year. So that wraps it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did enjoy this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Like I said, I'll be headed to Vegas in less than a week now. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, please do so at Nick Strength Power. I'm going to try to live stream and post as much as possible in real time at the Olympia in Vegas. And I can do that a little bit more freely on my Instagram than I can on YouTube. So if you want to see that stuff, it will be on my Instagram at Nick Strength and Power. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed already for more Olympia news and updates. We're getting really close, so stay tuned. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.